and welcome back our co-hosts from the first segment. That would be the Admiral Bill Stubblefield.
Good morning, Rob.
The Badger, Michael Height.
Good morning, sir.
And it's Pipestem you're headed to for the interims?
Pipestem, yes. We're going down to southern West Virginia to Pipestem.
And that begins Sunday.
Yes.
And ends when?
Usually finish up Tuesday afternoon. It depends on which committees you're in. If you're Delegate Hornby's on rules, and I think rules usually meets either late Tuesday or Wednesday morning. So everybody else finishes up Tuesday, but rules will finish up Wednesday.
All right. And when you go to interims, this is where you workshop a lot of stuff that ultimately we see in January when you start passing legislation?
Yeah. But when we go, let's say, outside of Charleston, a lot of times it's to learn things about the area as well. So, like if you're on the health committee, you may go on a tour of a medical facility in that area, or if you're in education, you may go on a tour of an educational facility in that area. So it's as much to workshop ideas, but also to learn about the area, which is good for a lot of us, who haven't been to the southern part of the state. It gives us an opportunity to learn more about the other needs of the state. And when we come back up here, we came up here a few years back to Morgan County, to the Cacapen State Park, and so it gave the southern contingency a good look at what the Eastern Panhandle's about. So those are all good things.
The Badger, Michael Heights. Also, let's say good morning to the longest tenured member of our crew, Mr. Michael Carl.
Good morning. Good to be here.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Pretty good for my age.
A young man he is.
Yeah,
I'm in good shape for the shape I'm in, right? Yeah. Mr. Lawrence Schultz, attorney at law.
Great to be here. Happy Halloween.
Via telephone, Mr. Joseph Joey Torts Ferretti.
Good morning. And Mike Height, I wonder when the delegates and the senators were up at Cacapen, did you guys take the opportunity to schedule something for all of them in Martinsburg on a weekday morning so they could experience the Route 9 traffic?
We did, and as a matter of fact, some of them took the new electric buses that there's a company here in West Virginia that's producing electric buses. So they used electric buses to shuttle us up and down the mountains, and they found the electric buses aren't as good on the mountains as they had hoped. But they did shuttle them over to Martinsburg and even to Jefferson County and show them some of the sites in Jefferson County. So it was a good opportunity for those people that weren't from around here to see our troubles, our trials and tribulations.
Didn't some funding come from that for Cacapen? Out of that interim, ultimately the next legislative session, didn't they get something passed that they needed passed?
Yeah, it wasn't just for Cacapen. I think there was for a lot of the state parks.
Right.
They did some expansions.
It was part of a greater package.
But it did get some of that.
But the big money going to Cacapen, thank you, I'm having trouble, was prior to that session you're talking about. That was 6, 7, 8 years ago.
Yeah, I think this one they expanded their shooting range up there, and they also expanded their camping lots.
But the renovation,
that
happened several years.
Yeah, they did a major renovation of their conference center, which is what allowed them to have the interims at that location.
Yeah.
Very good. All right, let's kick it off now with our leadoff hitter, Mr. Joseph Joey Torts Ferretti. The stage is yours, sir.
Rob, as we watch what is transpiring over the last 30 days in Washington, D.C. regarding the shutdown, and we see the squabbling between the two parties, which never ends, I became interested in a recent New York Times editorial regarding our current politics. And I'm going to get to that editorial in a minute because it's going to contain a quiz that I'm going to give our panel members this morning and perhaps our listeners too. Hopefully you'll note your reaction to the quiz here in a few minutes. But to talk about the great political divide in this country that exists and the polarization that is really thwarting any advancement of societal needs in this country, I commend people to the book Hidden Tribes. It's a 2018 book, and it's really a compilation of data from the polling group YouGov that conducted a poll over 2 years, 8,000 respondents. And these respondents agreed to be polled periodically during that 2-year period, and many of them invested about 30 hours of their personal time in responding to the many questions that were contained in these polls. And they were polled about their political thoughts and their political ideals, and really focusing on the issues of the day, such as immigration and crime and education and the economy. And what this book has concluded is that we do have polar extremes in this country on the political spectrum, but that's occupied by relatively few people. What they found was, and they called this the exhausted majority, 56%, according to this book, of the respondents in this poll really were in the political center. And like another book that addresses this is called Unstable Majorities. It argues that the American populace, in terms of their thinking on the issues of the day, that the thinking has not really shifted in the last 50 years, but the political parties have. They have, for reasons that we could, will take probably many books to read to understand, they have gravitated towards serving those on the polar extremes rather than this large group of people in the middle. So New York Times addressed this, citing these two books and other sources, and came up with a little quiz to take. And I'm going to just read off their quiz. And as you listen to these statements, think about whether you agree or disagree with what's being said. The New York Times poll postulated that voters prefer capitalism over socialism. Voters believe that corporations and the wealthy have too much power presently. On immigration, voters oppose the lax policies of the Biden administration, but also don't like the cruel enforcement of immigration policy by the current Trump administration. Voters favor robust policing to combat crime, but want action against police brutality. Most voters favor abortion access with restrictions on late-term pregnancies. Most voters oppose race-based affirmative action, but support class-based affirmative action. Most voters believe that trans girls should stay out of girls' sports, but trans people should have job protections. And finally, most voters like strong public schools and the flexibility to choose a school for their own children. Now, I don't know about you guys, but as I went through those questions, I checked just about every box. And as the New York Times concluded in their editorial, most Americans are there. But unfortunately, the parties aren't. And if you check boxes to all those questions, I think you have to ask yourself, are the parties today really serving you? And so I have to ask this morning, at what point do the parties lose credibility here? At what point do they lose their effectiveness? And is there any expectation or a hope that these parties may reform to serve the majority of voters in this country? Is a third party an answer? Is there ever going to be an opportunity for a third party to take hold? My conclusion is the country needs a sane and centrist party to put out the flames and get America's trust back in the political process here. So my questions this morning are, how did you do on the test? And secondly, do you agree that neither party is serving you presently? And what to do about it? Is there a one party or another that you feel might be more capable of tacking to the center? Is there a candidate out there that you feel might be able to take the lead and actually pull people along, pull a party along to get to the center? I think we need something on the near horizon here, because as we've seen in D.C. here recently, the present situation is just not working for us. So that's my questions this morning.
Good stuff, Joe. Very interesting topic to tackle in this first segment. Let's begin with the elder statesman of the crew, Mr. Bill Stubblefield. William.
Yes.
All right, good. We've got about 15 minutes to go. Let's see if we can elaborate with our next one. Mr. Carl?
Well, I agree with the substantive, policy focus that's been described. But I do think that the process of challenging different policy points, substantive policy points, is pretty active for sure on both sides. No question, it's both sides. But I think that the partisan advocacy of positions on these major issues is what the system is expected to be, and I think it ultimately works out if one thing we respect majority rule, and we have votes and so forth. So that's why the shutdown that's not recognizing majority power is creating the problems, or creating a controversy, I say. Substantive policy problems is another argument, but it's I agree with the substantive issues, but I think the process works pretty well. There's certainly mistakes made on both sides of the advocacy groups.
This was the first time Mr. Carl's answer was longer than Mr. Stubblefield's answer.
Yeah, wow.
But I'm ready to come back if you want to give me another
You
shot.
had your chance. You sit there quietly until I call on you.
That's hard to do, Rob.
Larry,
Yeah.
if Bill says anything, you make sure that you tell him he's not allowed to talk just yet.
Okay.
Go right ahead, Mr. Schultz.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the premise that Joe is raising, that most everybody, and that would include me, agrees with most every thing that he said. The problem is the parties, and specifically the party that's in power now, isn't interested in doing this stuff. They're interested in a whole bunch of issues like immigration. They're addressed to immigration, which is flagrantly violating our Constitution, so that it's not even close. So, yeah, I think that the Republican Party is further away from that group of norms that the majority agrees with, that Joe listed. I think they're further away from it than the Democrats are. Not to say the Democrats don't have some people, but part of the problem is, what's the policy that comes out? Not so much how do they campaign and what do they say they're going to do, because both parties have people who say they're going to do all kinds of stuff, and they get in power and they do something else altogether. So it's a difficult thing to analyze. I think what happens over time is not necessarily that we need a third party, but that the portions of each party that agree with more of those basic issues are going to end up running things. And to some extent, that's how it's always been. For example, I don't think it makes a lick of difference who New York, in the rest of the country, who New York City elects as their mayor, for example. I don't have a stake in the New York.
That's the case.
Well, I don't have a stake in the New York mayoral race at all. I think the last time I was in New York was 35 or 40 years ago, and it could be another 35 or 40 years until I go again. So I don't care who their government is, and I certainly realize that nobody is going to take Mr. Mamdani's platform and come to Raleigh County, West Virginia, and run for the state Senate with it. I don't care what party they're in, they would lose, right? So we're not a unified country in the sense that wherever you land in an aircraft and get off the plane and start talking to people about politics, you get the same answers. It is much different. So there can be within a particular party people who are extremely polar, very off to one side, and people who are extremely moderate. And what we need is not a third party, but for the moderate wings of both parties to start working together more than they have. And we do have some folks in both parties who are fairly extreme. I think that part of the analysis is correct. But I'm not necessarily believing that the resolution of that will be a third party, because I don't trust the idea that it won't just end up being then you'll have three sets of extremes to deal with. So it's a great idea as a goal, maybe, but I don't really trust that it's going to work out that way.
Mr. Height.
Well, first of all, I'll say I thought I ticked most of those boxes as well, and I agree with just about everything Larry just said. Just flip the parties. So I believe that the Republican Party is a whole lot closer to the middle than the Democrat Party, and you being on the left believe the Democrat Party is a whole lot closer to the middle than the Republican Party. So I believe that we both feel the same way, just that our party is a whole lot closer. It's interesting, Joe, that you mentioned the numbers that you mentioned. So 56%, I would say if you just look at that number and split it in half and say 28% is on the left, 28% is on the right, and then take the extreme portion, and say 22% of them is on the left, 22% is on the right. So what you have there is a 28-22 split on the left, 28-22 split on the right. And I think what happens with our leaders is they take the 28% in the middle for granted and think they have to curtail to the 28 or the 22% that's on the fringe. So the leaders start to move to and gravitate towards that 22% that they believe they need to get elected. And that's when the parties start to move farther left or farther right, and you get these extremes. Is it time for a third party? I would say yes. 2-3 years ago, I would have said no, but now I think there is an appetite for that middle ground party. It's just I don't know who it is. Every time we get one of these individuals who wants to start a third party, they're just a loon that nobody can get behind and follow. So you would have to get a very popular Democrat like a Joe Manchin who moves to the center and tries to start a third party, or a very popular Republican, and I don't know who that would be, that would move to the center and start a third party. That you could get all of those people, that 56% in the middle, to buy into on both sides. And I think it would have to come, those people would have to come, one from the left and one from the right, to join forces and start that third party. I don't know who those two people are right now. I haven't seen them. But I don't, while I think there's an appetite for it, I haven't met those two people.
I don't think it's not coming from our generation, Mike. It's going to come from the younger generation, which is pretty disgusted with both parties right now. Bill, you asked for an opportunity before I went back to Joe. Now's your time.
Yeah, I'm going to use Mike Height as an example. Mike said 3 or 4 years so ago he was against the third party. Now he'd be willing to entertain it. I think this is symbolic of our country as a whole. More and more people are saying our country is our government is dysfunctional, and there's so much noise out there, so much chaff being thrown around. It's hard to really come up with a solution other than something is wrong. And the more people realize something is wrong, the more there's going to be a coalescence around the concept of a third party. I think there are leaders that we have that could emerge. I think an ideal ticket was, and I'm drawing a quick blanket on a name, the governor of South Carolina who ran for president. Probably very, very capable lady, and
Nikki Haley.
I'm sorry?
Nikki Haley.
Nikki Haley, thank you, Joe. Paired with someone like Joe Manchin would be an extremely powerful ticket. Both of them have their partisan affiliation, or Joe had his partisan affiliation, but both of them have their partisan leanings, but both of them also gravitate toward the middle. That's what we need. But I think, and I don't agree with you, Rob, that it's going to be next generation. I think it's going to happen before then. I thought there was a serious move afoot last time when they were talking about the third party, and Manchin was perceived as potentially the leader. His argument was he did not want to hand the election to Donald Trump. He thought he might do it by entering as a third party, taking all the votes away from the Democrats. I think you're going to see something like that. I think it's going to emerge sooner than later because there is a heightened sense of dissatisfaction, a heightened sense of frustration with the way government's working just now.
I think short term you might be right, Bill, but I think as a long-term third option, it's got to come from the younger generation.
I think the candidates will be from the younger generation.
Yeah.
Now, maybe the supporters won't be.
Exactly right. I agree
But
with
the
Larry.
candidates
Yeah.
will be from the younger generation because we're all getting too old.
And we have some good younger generation candidates.
And the candidates also have to be strong enough to sustain the vitriol they're going to get from their own party. The Nikki Haley is going to, from the right, they will attack her from the right, and Joe Manchin, they will attack him from the left. So you have to be big enough, powerful enough, and have the right message to sustain that vitriol you're going to get from their own party.
And Mike, you and I had this discussion before the program started, not knowing Joe was going to ask this question, but we were parroting what we said earlier. I think and I think this is where the primary system fails us. I think it is impossible for a moderate of any partisan stripe, to be elected in our primary system. So our solution has to be, by default, has to be a third party, because a moderate cannot survive the Republican primary, a moderate cannot survive the Democratic primary.
Joe, comes back to you for the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, Bill, that is correct. And underlying all that is the gerrymandering system, which feeds into an extreme response both in the Republican and Democratic primaries in every state. And that has to be reformed if we're ever going to get some traction here for some of these independent thinkers. But here's the trend that gives me hope. If you look at registration for political affiliation across the country, for every one Democrat and Republican that is registering today, there are 2 people registering as independents. That gives me hope that the majority, the center of this country, will eventually become too large to ignore, too big of a voting constituency, that the parties are going to have to tack a little bit towards the center to get their support, get their vote. Right now, we're not there. We're not even close. The parties still have a stranglehold on the system, as Bill pointed out, primarily due to the primaries and gerrymandering. If we get some reforms in those areas, particularly gerrymandering, that opens up some of these seats to real challenges from center candidates, we have hope that someday we're going to have a government that respects the interest of all of us in the center, the exhausted majority, as the book Hidden Tribes talked about. That is really, I think, the best thing we can hope for going forward, because right now, as we can see in D.C., it's just not working.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate the efforts on the leadoff hitting once again out of the park. It's time for the top of the hour break. The Admiral and Mike Height on the clock. Friday crew for the Second hour of the program, you heard from Mr. Ferretti right there a moment ago. Let's also say good morning to the Badger, Delegate Michael Haidt.
Good morning. Great to be here.
Longest tenured member of our crew, Mr. Michael Carl.
Good morning.
He is the retired admiral, the former president of the Berkeley County Commission, and the man who says Capon State Park better than anybody I know. Bill Stubblefield.
In Morgan County, we just call it Capon State
Capon,
Park.
I can
That's for the,
I can
in case
handle
you
that,
stumble
yeah.
over that. It's just two words, Capon.
Thanks, Rob.
You're welcome, sir. Good to see you
Capon
again.
is a location. Capon is the state park.
That's right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Also, Mr. Lawrence Schultz, good morning to you.
Great to be here again.
And a happy Halloween to all. Hope you all have your costumes ready and a bag of candy or 10, depending on the neighborhood you live in. With issue number 2, we now go to the Admiral, Bill Stubblefield.
Now, the only one dressed in costume today is Larry Schultz.
What, dressed as the Wolfman? I don't
Coming-
know what.
I'm coming as a Morgan County. Yeah, we do have a costume. Blue jeans and a black shirt. Sure.
Yeah.
I do like the Wolfman, though, Mike. Wolfman Jack. I like that. That's cool.
Yeah. Rob, I'm going to build upon the very engaged conversation that Joe led us down a couple minutes ago. Benjamin Franklin said, "We have given you a republic. Can you keep it?" A recent poll said 77% of the country feel that our democracy is under threat. We keep saying Congress is not getting anything done, laying everything at the foot of Congress. There's a group of us to get together for breakfast every Thursday, of which around our table now, 2 of them join us for the Thursday morning breakfast, Mike Carl and Mike Haidt. And there's several other folks. And we're all good friends, have been good friends for several years. And during our discussion, Thursday morning discussion, most everything dealing with politics is on the table. We have not shied away from any subjects. We have all left the table with a handshake or a grin and a lot of laughter around our discussion. But something that has become apparent to me more recently is that our partisan silos have now developed an attitude of a medieval fortress with a large moat around it. We don't accept incoming opinions as something worth debate. We spend all of our time throwing out our partisan sound bites. So it is around the table, partisan soundbite counted by another partisan soundbite, counted by another partisan soundbite. We are trying, I think, to not share a discussion. We're trying to own a discussion. And this is not unique to us. I think this is a microcosm of our society as a whole. When we get a diverse group, and our group is intentionally diverse politically, and that's what we enjoy the most about it, but we're no longer working toward a solution. We're throwing out our partisan sound bites. If we cannot work toward a solution among a group of friends that know each other very well, how can we expect Congress to be any better than we have? We need to change our attitude towards strict tribalism and look toward that moderate ground. How we can achieve that, though, is going to be very, very tough. My question is to my colleagues, have we developed this medieval fortress of trying to protect our views at the exclusion of any other views that run contrary to our views?
Mike Haidt, I think you're part of that breakfast, weren't you?
Yeah, as one of the most enlightened people at that breakfast table, I will say that
Who would that be? Oh, you mean you.
I will say that Bill brings up a good point. That and I think this is what happens at most tables around the country is we have gotten to the point where we don't listen anymore. We don't listen to what the other person is saying and try to understand their point of view. We are merely waiting for the opening so that we can give our point of view and tell everybody how smart we are. And I think we've lost the ability to listen in this country a lot of times. The difference, you want to liken us to Congress, the difference is we were friends first, and we came around a table as friends and started talking politics. Congress is not like that at all. They're all politicians. They were never friends. And even though they may act like friends at times, they all hate each other, and they'll never be friends. They're all looking for power and ways to control their party and their opinions. So I don't liken our breakfast crew to Congress at all, which means that there's probably no hope for Congress at all. They'll never get to that point where they can have these discussions and then walk away as friends, or have these jovial discussions at all. But we have to get back to the point where we actually listen to each other and at least try to see a point of view from someone else's perspective.
Mr. Schultz.
Yes. It's odd that we have these partisan silos among the people of this country. And of course, we also have some pretty steeply set up partisan silos in the Congress and the Senate of the United States. And currently, the government is shut down, unable to function, unable to do much of anything. You might say that as a result, our Congress is perfectly representative of the American people. It's kind of sad, and I'm not saying it's a good idea, but if anything, the partisan silo walls are higher in the Congress than they are around your friendly table. And it's kind of a difficult thing to get out of, especially when one party in power does things for reasons that are not yet revealed, like allow the government to shut down when they could very easily, by a majority vote in the Senate, change the filibuster rule and turn this into a game over deal. Instead, what we're fighting over and what's got the government shut down is a continuing resolution, not a budget. Oh, God forbid, right? Not a bunch of appropriations bills and a bunch of tax bills that have actually set up what we're going to do, but just a continuing thing so we can put this off again. I don't think that the people around that table, this is a way in which it's not perfectly representative, I don't think the people around that table do that in their ordinary life, in their daily life. They don't say, oh, well, geez, let's just put this decision off for 6 months, for 4 months. Let's just let it ride. And so that is a bit of a problem. I believe that when one party goes to an extreme that threatens people's livelihoods, then that party usually ends up getting corrected in the next midterm election. Have the Republicans done that? I guess we're going to see. I'm not necessarily convinced that the answer to these partisan silos is a third silo, I guess is what I'm saying. There is such a thing as, at some point, you can't be a complete moderate. You have to have an opinion about a particular issue that you're faced with. You can't just say, well, that one's a little too contentious. I'm not in the partisan side of this, so I'll just avoid that issue. We have a fair number of people in the House and Senate who are doing that very thing on a daily basis. Slowly on the Republican side, as we saw just recently, they're starting to move, a few are starting to move over and get some things done. I don't know that, I don't know how we get out of this. We've kind of reached a point where we wait until there's a disaster and then address the disaster, whereas my impression of American government for the last 200 years has been more like, hey, let's look ahead and see what the problem might be and see if we can keep it from becoming a problem right now. I don't have a lot of hope that that's going to change anytime soon, whether we have a third party or not.
Mike Carl.
I think what's most important to recognize is the difference, the fundamental difference between the breakfast of friends that I participate in, has been referred to, and our exercise of our rights as individuals to have opinions about sub-policy issues, and to be talked out of them or insist on them, either way. But the difference is that the elected members of Congress have an absolute duty to run the government, to make laws, to appropriate funds for particular public expenditures. They have a duty to make that happen, and the 60 vote rule is an arbitrary blockage of the constitutional mandate of the majority rule. Is what our democracy works on. It's what Congress is authorized to use, and it should be used.
There I am, Mr. Ferretti.
Well, Bill, I think the silos of which you speak they're constructed of our algorithmic existence that we have on the internet, on the web, social media. We know how all that works. So you plug in a question or a comment, and pretty soon your feed on your internet, which is personalized to you, starts providing you a bunch of reinforcement, a lot of stories and a lot of pronouncements by politicians that you agree with. And pretty soon that's all you see, and you don't know anything else but that existence, that reality. And the reason why the book I refer to in my segment talked about an exhausted majority. People are exhausted in the middle of this country, the middle of the political spectrum. They're exhausted in dealing with these alternate realities. It's this way. No, it's that way. And they see the politicians arguing that way all the time. And they see us in public, probably at your breakfast, arguing that way. Because this is all I know on this side of the issue, and then you get the exact opposite coming from somebody else on the other side of the political spectrum. And there's no common ground. Senator Raphael Warnock from Georgia, I think summarized this shutdown as best can be. He said, look, how can I choose between people losing health care and people losing food? That's what he's faced with here. As a voter in the Senate on the very issues about this CR and whether to open up the government, that is the question in his mind. And how do you choose between those two things? Now, a functioning government, I think we can all agree, would be able to come to some compromise and say, you know what, I think we can have both food and health care. But nobody's suggesting that. Nobody's coming forth with a plan. It's all either my way or the highway. And until we get around that, until we understand that there's more to reality than just what you see on your internet feed, I think we're going to be stuck. But if you get it down to this base elements here, we're choosing health care or food. By God, the richest country on earth can afford both.
Back to you, Bill, to wrap it up.
Yeah, good discussion. I think Mike Carl made a very good point in that there is a fundamental difference between our breakfast group and Congress. Congress has a responsibility to address these. We have a pleasure of addressing them, but we do not have to come up with a solution.
The other difference is you guys actually have to pay the bill on time.
That's right. Yes. I keep waiting for Deep Pockets Mike Hite to volunteer to pay the bill, but he hasn't done it yet.
Yeah, that won't happen.
Hey, don't let him fool you. Mike Hite is a very generous man.
He is. He really is. He's very certain. As is evidence over Christmas when he goes out and, won't tell.
All right, issue number, you almost blew it for you. Issue number 3, Mr. Michael Hite.
All right, I'm going to move on to Trump. Everybody likes to talk about Trump. And he's on his East Asia trip right now. And he has cut some deals with China on tariffs and trade. He's also been part of some peace negotiations over in that area, and has brought back some soybean trade with China that we had lost, and so my question is, was this a successful East Asia trip for him and for this administration, and why or why not?
All right, Larry Schultz, I saw you immediately rear your head back when Mike Hite credited the president for bringing back some soybean business.
Well, yes. He's the guy who crashed the soybean business just weeks ago in the middle of his negotiations over tariffs. And it's still not clear whether he's done this too late. They've been harvesting soybeans since the beginning of September. And because China didn't buy last year's crop in the run-up to September, a lot of the warehouses are full. And so they have no place to put these new soybeans that they've brought in. And, I think it's going to be a bit of a problem because he started way too late with this thing about the soybeans, and he's therefore having to end it way too late. But this is a self-inflicted wound by Mr. Trump. And I don't have a tendency with regard to any president to say, oh, he made decisions that crashed something, and now he's sort of kind of maybe going to salvage it. That doesn't make him a hero. That makes him somebody who had trouble understanding before he crashed it in the first place what a stupid idea it was to crash it. That's kind of where we are. The Chinese are going to buy soybeans now, but it could be too late in two senses. Number one, the storage problem that I've spoken about, because, they can't just fly an aircraft carrier over here or 50 aircraft carriers and fill them up with soybeans. 12 million metric tons of soybeans. That's a few truck hours, and that's some ship time. And I don't know that we're going to be able to do it this late. But the broader question is, why are we even in this box? Good Lord, the soybean people, the soybean farmers, they were perfectly willing, even if they might have voted for Trump or not voted for Trump, either way, they were perfectly willing to just go along with the way it was going before. But Mr. Trump crashed it. It doesn't make him a hero to try to uncrash it.
All right, on that note, let's get to Mike Carl.
Well, first of all, I think Trump's effort that he just came back is in the right is a step in the right direction, but he knows as well as all of us know that it is just a step, and you have to continue to be involved and monitor and aggressively react to actions by the other side that are adverse to the general understanding that was reached in his meeting. But it was an affirmative step in the right direction, and it certainly is far better than the lack of steps whatsoever by Trump's predecessor. So, but it's the story's not over yet. It needs continuing monitoring and response, and as the agreed improvements play out or are avoided.
Mr. Stubblefield.
I think there were some gains, definitely. The soybeans, as Larry mentioned, fentanyl, the 1 year reprieve that we have for access to rare earths. They have to be counted, though, with what China gained, and that was access to some of our very sophisticated high technology that had previously been off limits to China. Now they apparently will have access to it. That to me is, for the long term, much more. I'm more nervous about that than I am some of these short-term gains. Are we better off? Trump came back and said it was the on a scale of 1 to 10, the success rate was 12. A lot of folks question that. They also say that even though the jury, as Mike Carl said, the jury is still out, it appears that we actually have given up more than what we got, and that there is and what we have gained is very short-lived.
Mr. Ferretti.
Yeah, Bill, the NVIDIA chips, the highest sophisticated chips they have are called the Blackwell chips, and it is yet to be determined what agreements the Trump administration made with President Xi regarding the access to those chips. Those are military-grade kind of chips, and there was concern that that might be given away. Again, the details of the agreement have not been fully fleshed out, so we'll see. But initial reports are that the agreements did not involve those chips, but that remains to be seen. As for soybeans, the soybean farmer bankruptcies are up. And despite Scott Bessent, the Secretary of Treasury, running around on Fox talking about the commitment of the Chinese to buy 25 million tons of soybeans over the next 3 years annually. 2017, you can look it up, we were selling China 30 million tons of soybeans. So I don't see that commitment as a win for the United States. That is just repairing a problem that was self-imposed by us. And look, the Chinese aren't stupid. They know that there's a Supreme Court case pending right now over the constitutional authority of the Trump administration to even have these tariffs. So I don't think the commitments are wide-ranging and significant. I'm sure the Chinese are going to wait to see if our courts will even bless these tariffs, which remains to be seen.
Back to you, Mike Height, to close it up.
Yeah, I think the trip itself was a success. It was not a 12 out of 10. That's just another bombastic comment by our president. But it was probably a 4 or 5 out of 10. It wasn't everything that Trump says it is. I do think it helped solve the soybean issue. You got 12 million metric tons this year, and at least not just 25, but at least 25 million over the next 3 years. So I think that sort of solves the soybean issue, at least temporarily, and it helps with the tariffs, that they've negotiated tariffs and the issues with the tariffs. The rare earth minerals was a plus, and everybody seems to just ignore the more peace negotiations that his administration was part of in the Far East.
Thank you, Mr. Heights. We will return with Mr. Schultz and Mr. Carl on the clock as the Friday Five continues on this Halloween 2025. Via telephone, Joseph Joe Torts Ferretti back for the final segment here. Joe, welcome back.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
Delegate Michael Heights.
Good morning. Good to be here.
Attorney at Law Michael Carl.
Good morning.
Admiral Bill Stubblefield.
Good morning, Rob.
And with issue number 4, the Wolfman, Larry Schultz.
I've done some checking during the break, and the record of Badgers against Wolves is really poor. They're like the Jets. No matter who the Jets play, they lose.
Oh, no. I think we've overrated the Badgers' success rate on the Bengals.
Okay, and
I wouldn't bank on that.
I'm going to take one of Mr. Height's questions, and that is, should politicians get paid during a shutdown? We're talking about U.S. Federal politicians. I don't think states even allow their legislatures to get in a situation where they can shut down the state government. Maybe there have been some cases of that.
Well,
but
they don't
pretty
pay
much,
them a whole lot either. So
yeah, it's a federal thing. Not only should they not be paid, and I'm saying this with regard to both parties, but they should not get all the side benefits that come with it, like, and this is ironic as can be, health insurance that they get for free. And I'm sure there's other kind of pension sorts of things, or other things. There are housing allowances. There are all kinds of grift and graft.
insider trading tips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That all should stop. because you had, I hate to be too ESPN about this, but you had one job, and that was to run the United States government, and you shut it down. That's unacceptable. And during the period of time that it shut down, you're not going to be paid. I would go even further and say your ability to grow your campaign war chest is also stopped as long as the government is stopped. So get it fixed, and get it fixed now. It's sort of like saying you're hired to run a bulldozer at somebody's house and the bulldozer's broke. If I'm the customer, I shouldn't have to tell you, fix the damn bulldozer and get the job done. You should fix it, sort of on your own initiative. And if they're not going to do that, then certainly the bulldozer operator isn't going to get any of my money.
But what if the law said he gets paid anyway?
Well, then that law needs to be changed, and we need to pressure our local leaders to, for example, Riley Moore. He could donate his entire salary during this period of time to Patrick Morrissey's food banks, and he'd get a match from the state government. No, the food banks would get a match from the state government. Perfect. In the meantime, I don't want to pay for this, especially when you're about to put children in a position of hunger, to put folks, elderly and other poor folks, in a position of not being able to afford nursing home care, and children not being able to have the amenities of life, like, having their parents be able to pay their rent. If you're going to put that on them, then the first thing you should do is give up your paycheck and your benefits.
Joe Ferretti, let's go to you first.
Well, Larry, I suspect you're not going to get any disagreement amongst the panel, or perhaps even amongst the listeners this morning on that proposal. Congress has needed reform for a long time, and we have seen many politicians who campaign on congressional reforms of one kind or another, and then they get elected and go to D.C. and just add to the evidence of the need for reform. For whatever reason, they're either unwilling or unable to get the reforms through. And we've ticked off a number of those, like the insider trading thing, and of course, the fact that they're getting paid while they're not working. And let's keep in mind this, too. The House has not worked. They've not been in session now for 6 weeks. And I understand why they're staying away. It's a leverage point. But my goodness, is there not other business to do in this country? 6 weeks they haven't been in session. I just find that appalling. But look, there's a reason why the congressional approval rating is hovering around 12%, lower than any other branch of government. Frankly, lower than any other government agency, state or federal. So, but yet there's no political price to pay. And I'll take it right back to the discussion we had about gerrymandering and the fact that we just don't have a choice in these primaries anymore, and it's a shame because this is what it leads to.
Mike Height.
Yes, I'm going to agree. I think I don't know that Riley Moore should donate his entire salary to the food bank. I'm not going to go that far, but I will say, Justice Capito, Carol Miller, Riley Moore, any one of them could run a bill that says that Congress does not get paid if there is a shutdown, or something to that effect. And you can do the benefits as well. You don't get anything if you're not going to have the government being operated on a day-to-day business, then you shouldn't get paid either. And I think it would be one of those types of bills that how could you vote against it? If you would bring that up, who would vote against that particular bill? My guess is it would never see the light of day. It would never get out of committee. It would be buried, and the only way you could do this is you would have to not only write the bill, you would have to go public with it. You would have to be on all the news shows, the Sunday morning talk shows. You would have to let the American people know that I have this bill out there, and this is the particular person, this is the particular committee that refuses to run it, or this is the House Majority Leader, or Speaker of the House that refuses to run it, or on the Senate side, the President of the Senate refuses to run it. That's the only way you're going to get something like this passed, because otherwise it would just be buried. But it would take somebody with some cojones to write that bill.
Mike Carl.
I thought Mike Height was moving toward my perspective, but I think he went a little too far, or wasn't clear. I think there should be a capacity to eliminate the compensation, the salaries of the members of Congress who cause the shutdown.
Bill Stubblefield.
And who would that be, Mike?
That would be the Democratic senators right now. Except for the three that are voting with the Republicans.
I suspected that's who we were talking about.
It's obvious.
It's obvious, yeah. This morning, Rob, we've had a central theme: how our government is not fulfilling their responsibilities and addressing the needs of the country. Every one of these segments have had the same theme. It's interesting that Larry Peck, when he first was on this morning, said the best government is local government. And I think that's exactly right. Local government addresses the problem. The farther you get up the spectrum of governance, the less attached they are to the needs of the people. We're just seeing so many things wrong with what's going on just now. Certain populations not being served, certain demographics not being served, self-service, and the whole bit. Answer to your question, Larry, a simple answer is no. I don't think they should be paid. And I suspect 99% of the populace, if we believed in polls, which Mike Carl does not, but if there was poll, but probably Mike Carl would believe in that poll, 99% would say the same thing. They should not be paid. But this is symbolic of what we're seeing with the government now. They are immune to the concerns of the people. It's just like a turtle. Water hits on the back of the turtle and just runs off. They're oblivious. They may not be oblivious, but they're not about to do anything to address the needs of the people.
Larry, go ahead, Mike.
Let me take a real quick response to Mike Carl, and let me tell you why your particular way of doing things wouldn't work.
Oh, right. This is what I want to hear.
It takes out the consideration of peer pressure. You because of your vote, your no vote, takes money out of my pocket. There's going to be a whole lot of peer pressure from me to you. You need to change your vote, and here's why. Now you're not just taking money out of your pocket, you're taking money out of my pocket. It doesn't matter whether or not I'm on the same side of the aisle with you anymore. You're still taking money out of my pocket.
That's a decent point. I agree.
Look, see that? Look, did you see that, Bill?
Did you see that, Bill?
Mike accepted another opinion, changed his mind.
Open-minded.
No.
He listened.
From another Republican.
But he listened, and he had an open mind.
Baby
Larry
steps.
Schultz say that. What would Mike Carl's
See?
response be?
Baby steps, Bill. Baby steps.
You can't win. You can't win with Bill.
Baby steps. Come on, Bill.
It is interesting to me that we've been discussing these silos, but now we're talking about something that everybody agrees about. Everybody, except maybe, a few folks who are behind on their primary residence mortgage, who are also in the Congress. Look, it is the kind of thing where you were hired to do a job, and we're asking you to do that job. And let there be no mistake, we've gone over this several weeks in a row now, in the Republican caucus is the absolute power to get rid of the 60 vote requirement and open this government tomorrow without a single Democratic vote. So when you tell me that this is a Democratic cause shutdown, you could end it. You could have ended it how many ever days ago it was that it started. It never had to happen in the first place. And so now, after all these weeks and all this suffering and all this pain, even the President of the United States is calling for the Republicans to get rid of the filibuster and open the government back up again. So this is not a Democratic issue.
But, you know,
And this is something that everybody in America almost, except maybe a few congressmen who are behind on their bills, would agree with.
If Larry is agreeing with President Trump, you know he doesn't agree with the solution.
All I can say,
You might be spewing it, but you don't agree with it.
don't let the Wolfman let the badger get away with that.
No, I'm just kind of sorry that it took this guy 2 or 3 weeks to figure out what we talked about on this show 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's like he finally listened to the delayed tape of the show and said, hey, the Republicans can take care of this. You know, he could have said that back when we started saying it. It's too bad. It's a choice. And shutting down the government. And that doesn't, that would be some pain for some individual members of Congress and the Senate. But let's be clear. It's not going to be like the pain that the VA workers got when they summarily lost their jobs without cause months ago. It's not going to be anything like the federal employees who were laid off by the thousands. They lost their jobs. They didn't just lose their pay for something that was within their control. They lost their job forever.
But for the past 4 years, there had to be some kind of bipartisan agreement in order to pass these continuing resolutions, which means Republicans negotiated with Democrats to come to a solution, and Republicans gave them the 60% that they needed.
No, not always. Just because this is just about as the longest one doesn't mean there haven't been other shutdowns. There have been plenty of shutdowns that didn't last as long.
But my point is they had to negotiate at some point, which means when you had a Democrat-controlled Congress, Republicans had to cave in at some point or negotiate and agree to a continuing resolution. Right now, we're talking about Republicans have said, we will give you the budget, the Biden budget. Everything stays at current levels that we've negotiated over the past 4 years. Everything stays right where it's at. And that's the vote that the Democrats are saying no to now.
A fundamental difference, Mike, is there is no trust at all. The only leverage that the Democrats have to protect the health care, because they do not trust the Republicans of protecting the health care. It was in the big, beautiful bill that the health care would be reduced substantially. The only protection the Democrats have right now is with this with the shutdown. So they're doing it because there's no trust between the two parties.
You're admitting the Democrats are shutting it down.
We got to end this.
I think that's the reason they're voting.
That's not why they're...
That's the reason
you just said the Democrats have shut it down.
No, I said that's the reason
That's
they're
what
voting.
you said, Bill.
Okay, then I'll say that. Okay. I'll say that because there's no trust involved.
Okay.
That's the only leverage they have.
We have to get to Mike Carl, or else we won't be able to get to Mike Carl. I'll just close this by saying I find it ironic
We are trying.
The Republicans who began the year by accusing federal employees of staying at home and not working while getting paid are now staying at home as congressmen and congresswomen and not
working
and getting paid. So there you go.
Hopefully it's going to mean a lot for the donations to the food banks, though.
Yeah.
Mr. Carl, issue number 5.
I have a question. What will be the effect on the Democrats' prospects in the next midterm election and in the next presidential election of the growing proof of Biden's limitations in incapacity or growing incapacity, and of the often related abuse of the auto pen device? What will be the effect on Democrats in the next 2 elections of
all right,
that proof?
Upcoming midterms, the effects, Joe Ferretti.
Well, Mike, I think your question raises an interesting point. You earlier in the show you talked about the need to respect majority rule, but here I see an effort to really delegitimize majority rule that occurred during the Biden administration. He was duly elected. He had a plan. He had policies. And there's now this attempt to look back and say that, boy, I bet you bills he signed or executive orders he signed were done by an auto pen, so they're all illegitimate and they're going to be void as a matter of law, and we don't have to follow anything that was done in the previous administration, even though it was the result at that time of majority rule. So I don't think this is helpful, this kind of look back. I have not seen definitive evidence that the so-called auto pen issue amounts to much. All presidents have used an auto pen. Now, whether it was done in the Biden administration because of incapacity, I got to see more than what some enterprising reporter on Fox News is saying. I got to see more proof than that. But absent that, I don't see this issue as being one that's is going to be all that helpful for this country to move forward.
Mike Height.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be as big a deal as you think, Mike. I think most people are going to look at this and say, yeah, these things happened, but what the heck's that have to do with where we are right now? What I think should happen is I think, if we learn that some of these things were happening where he wasn't cognizant and he didn't know that what was being signed, if you can prove that, I think what should happen is we should institute rules, regulations, laws to make sure that this doesn't happen again. It's always about the cover up. So I think it's more this time, if these things were happening, it's more about the cover up, about whether or not Biden had the capacity towards the end to actually be president, or were they covering for him? And the auto pen may be just one of those things that helps prove it one way or the other. I'm more interested, not so much interested in what Biden did a year ago, 2 years ago. I'm more interested in how do we stop this from ever happening again? If this was an issue, how do we make sure that this doesn't happen? There were a lot of the same questions by the Democrats during Reagan's final years, whether or not he had the capacity or whether or not he was losing it during the end of his presidency. So, I think that it's the people around presidents that need to take control of those situations and not hide it if that's indeed a factor.
Bill?
Yeah, if you want it from a mechanism of getting rid of somebody, we already have that in place. You could use the impeachment process if they felt somebody wasn't capable. Also, you could use the cabinet to do the same thing. I don't think either one of those would be done. But going back to your basic question, Mike, except for folks that are going to vote for a Republican anyway, I don't think it makes a whit of difference. I don't think for the general public it's going to make any difference at all. What is going to make a difference is the economy and the jobs. That is going to make the difference. They're not going to look back and say what happened with the auto pen. That was ancient history. They could care less about it. It's the economy. It's the jobs.
Mr. Schultz.
Yes. Look, the House of Representatives is shut down right now. That wasn't done by auto pen. That was done on purpose. They're refusing to swear in a duly elected Congress member because she's the 218th vote for the discharge petition regarding Mr. Epstein. And we are going to eventually find out that this will make the auto pen look like a nothing burger. I don't think there's any soybean farmers who are preparing their bankruptcy petitions who are very worried about the auto pen.
10 seconds.
I think they're worried about the soybean market.
Mike, final thought goes to you. 20 seconds.
The adverse or the great contrast between Biden and Trump's competence will help the Republicans in the midterms for sure, and maybe in the next presidential election.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Carl. Thank you, gentlemen. We've got final thoughts coming up on this Halloween 2025. 8 seconds apiece after the break.